Scal joins us now on the Harbor One hotline. So, Scal, that was your intro.
You know why I couldn't meet at 4? Because I was busy with some strippers. But it's my day off.
There you go. Well, thank you for
do
joining
what you
us.
need to do.
Thank you for joining us on your day off. Scal, I got to ask you about what did you make of Jaylen Brown's comments after the Orlando Magic game about the refs being maybe a little inconsistent with their travel calls? Do you feel like he's somebody who's getting targeted by the officials in trying to ramp up those calls?
Not more than there's a guy in the NBA that gets called for more carries and more travels than anybody, and that's Jordan Poole. But there's guys out there that try to manipulate the game and like float the ball and delay a gather. Those are all things that you work on to try to get a slight advantage. I'm sure it's like that at every sport. I'm just not familiar with the other sports. And Jaylen Brown, he uses that, whether it's a jab and a go or a pump fake and a go. And the refs are kind of trained to call those, but I don't think he's unfairly targeted. I just think that there's a lot of guys that play that style that the referees are cracking down on.
So how do you think Rob Williams has looked so far?
Good. I mean, he's made an impact. I know the wins haven't been there the last 2 games, but I think I mentioned on this show I was really surprised how early on the season they were running that 5-out offense and it was doing so well. Historically speaking, that offense has not. Like 5 guys around the perimeter. NBA players are so big, so strong, so long, athletic that it's hard to find driving gaps. But the Celtics early on were moving it and cutting, and they were really spot on with that. So having that guy at the rim that anytime you drive, if they load up and try to meet you 10 feet out, throwing the ball up and having Rob dunk it is a huge advantage. They call that vertical spacing in the business, and it's obviously a huge advantage. And I am a proponent of 4 out and having a guy in going dunker to dunker or roll man. And I think from that standpoint, it has helped. But other sides, the Celtics just look like they're not moving, cutting, and playing at the same style they were playing early on.
Scal, it's me, other gentleman here. I wanted to go back to that Golden State game with, to me, it seemed like this team was on fire and just unstoppable. Golden State really sort of has a hold over them, and they haven't looked the same since that game. The Clippers are a tough matchup. It was a great comeback against the Lakers. 2 straight losses to Orlando. Did something happen in that Golden State game that you observed that sort of set this team on kind of a rocky path here these last couple weeks?
So, other gentlemen, you got to back it up a little bit further. I think the cat got out of the bag in the second Miami game. I don't think that they've been good offensively since then. And what Miami did, and what every good team has done since, and then minus the Phoenix Suns game, which is kind of thrown in there, where you kind of forget about the Toronto game where they weren't good offensively, the Brooklyn game against a terrible defensive team at the time. They weren't good against them either, but they figured out ways to win both those games. So what was happening is they are jamming up Tatum and Brown when they're playing and forcing them to drive. And they are meeting them, 13 feet, 12 feet, 11 feet outside of the paint. So they're forcing these guys to really move the ball. And they're not at a point where everyone can cut because the way that they're jamming these guys up. What has to happen is they need to take one hard dribble when a guy is jamming them up, get rid of the ball, and then kind of play from there. But maybe they're taking 1 too many dribbles, and they're having a hard time making that rim read. I don't know if you've heard the Golden State game. You heard Joe Mazzulla say, guys, we got to do a better job at the rim. We got to make better rim reads. Well, I don't think since that Miami game, I feel like our rim reads have been really down, which before that, the reason why we were historically good is because everybody was attacking and getting off the ball really quickly and keeping teams in rotation.
Do you think Joe Mazzulla is creative enough to adjust to the way these defenses are attacking them now?
Yeah, I think so. The question is, I haven't seen it yet. And I know, coaches in general, they don't just sit there and make 100 adjustments during a game. I don't know if other sports are like that. In basketball, you emphasize maybe 3 things, and really you drive home 1 or 2 points. So I feel like the adjustments that they have made from game to game is they're trying to get there. But I will go back to saying, when you play 5 out, your cutting has to be precise. And you have to cut hard, and you might not be getting the ball when you make that cut, which will open up the floor for other people. So it's a very selfless offense. And so we'll see if they continue to go down that road and play with that pace and play with those cuts. If they do that, I really believe with the makeup of this team, the personnel, they can have an unstoppable offense. But I haven't seen that in the last 8.
So, Scal, Celtics have a premium spot on Christmas Day facing the Milwaukee Bucks. What are you looking forward to from that game, and what's your prediction there?
I mean, those are always tough because, like, Christmas Day games as their marquee matchups, they're not like the way that the Bucks and the Celtics would play if they play in a playoff series. So, you know, I expect it to be like you're talking about two teams that need to be really physical to win, and it's kind of like they look and they have the feel of like friendlies. So I'm not going to take too much out of it with a Christmas Day matchup. I do know this. The Bucks are the most physical team in the NBA, and I know that physicality bothers the Celtics at times. You have to counter that with ball movement. You can't just like go out there and play force against force. You have to do it with skill. And so if they get back to cutting, moving, and playing with their skill, I think they can beat any team in the NBA. But they have a point guard named Drew Holiday. Mm-hmm. He just guarded Zion Williamson and locked him up the other day. Can you imagine? Like, Zion is destroying people in the paint, yet Drew Holiday gave him problems. So that's just an example of how physical, and that's not even bringing up Giannis or Lopez or Bobby Portis or Chris Middleton and how big this team is. So to me, it's a clash that they're going to face sometime in the playoffs, and it's going to be an absolute bloodbath.
So are you surprised the Nets seem like they figured it out? It seems like
really.
Everyone kind of wrote them off for a little bit. Had a lot of crazy stuff going on. Next thing you know, I'm like, oh, look at them. They've won like 6 in a row.
So not really. If you kind of dive into it, they're winning games. Yes, they're winning. You know, I think like 8 of 9 or 10 of 11. But what's really they're catching teams like tonight. They're catching Golden State Warriors without Klay Thompson, without Steph Curry. They've been doing that along the way. But, you know, when Kevin Durant is locked in and focused, and as much as I don't like Kyrie Irving as a player, and I think he's inconsistent, and I don't think you can win long-term with him, he's been on his best behavior since he's in a contract year. There's been some threats of, like, people saying, like, we just don't want Kyrie Irving. So with that out there, that can make a talented guy lock in and focus in. Kyrie Irving's problem is not basketball. His problem is he gets caught up in other things, and it affects basketball. Other people could do it. LeBron James could do movies and do whatever LeBron does, but he's good enough to not be affected by it. Kyrie always seems to be taking away from basketball. But right now, he's locked in. He's really good. And he's a matchup nightmare, especially when you have Kevin Durant on their team. And don't sleep on their role players. Their role players are perfect fits for those two guys. So, yeah, there's a little bit of scheduling, a little bit of catching teams when they're injured, and a little bit of, Kyrie Irving being locked in. That could change a team, especially a talented team like them.
Brian Scalebrine from NBC Sports Boston. He joins us every Wednesday. Scal, thank you. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday.
There you go. Merry Christmas.
I'm surprised. You guys did not bring up the fact that I guaranteed a win this weekend, and they lost 2 games. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we
don't
keep
need
it light.
to keep score on
It was certainly talked about off.
It's a long season, Scal. We want you back at some point.
No, I'll always come back, but I just appreciate you not calling me out. So thank you so much.
It's the Christmas spirit. All right. Thanks, Scal. Are you happy with that, Foye? I said Merry Christmas.
I know. I think it was natural.